Let me now talk to you about the .gitignore file. So far, we've been adding every file to the staging area and committing it. But in a real project, there'll be files that you don't want Git to track. Things like log files, environment files that contain sensitive information, such as passwords or API keys, or system files that your operating system generates automatically. These files do not belong in your repository. That's where this .gitignore file comes in. It's a special file that tells Git which folders or files to completely ignore. If a file matches a pattern in your .gitignore file, then Git won't track it. It won't show up as untracked when you run git status, and it won't accidentally get committed. As far as Git is concerned, that file doesn't exist. So let me show you how it works. First of all, let me create a couple of things that I want to ignore in the repository. I'll create a file called .env. This is just a common file used to store environment variables, such as API keys and database passwords. So I'll add some dummy content. I'll just say API_key equals 123, and then I'll save that. I'll also create a folder called Scratch. So to create a folder, you can click on this folder icon with a plus, and I'll just say Scratch. And then within that folder, we can add files, as you can see. So if you hover over the folder, you can add a file. So I'll just say scratch_file.py, and then I'll just print, this is a Scratch file, and then save that. Great. So we've got a folder with a file inside of it and a .env file that we want to ignore. So let's currently check the status of our Git repository. So if I just open up the integrated terminal, clear it, and then I type git status, you can see that these files and the folder have been marked as untracked files. So Git can see both of these files and folders, but we do not want to commit either of these. So now let me create a .gitignore file. So I'll create a new file and I'll call it .gitignore, like this. This needs to be created in the root of your project. So the name matters as well. It has to be this exact name. So inside of this file, I'll add .env, and then in a new space, I will add Scratch, and then a slash, and then I'll save that. So this first line tells Git to ignore this .env file. And this second line tells Git to ignore the entire Scratch folder and everything inside of it. The / after the folder name tells Git that this is a directory. So I've saved that, and now let's see what happens when I do git status again. So let me type git status. This time, notice we only have this .gitignore file as an untracked file. It no longer has .env or the Scratch directory as an untracked file. These have completely disappeared from the status output. Git no longer acknowledges them. The only file showing up is this .gitignore file. And yes, we do want to commit this .gitignore file. So it should be part of our repository so that anyone else working on the project gets the same ignore rules. So let me add this file and commit it. So I'll just type git. So let me just actually first clear the terminal. I could type git add dot to add everything into the staging area. And then I can type git commit -m and then the message added .gitignore file, and then press enter. So let me clear the terminal. Great, and that's done. Now it's worth pointing out that you're not limited to individual file names and folder paths. You can also use patterns. So for example, if you add a pattern like *.py, then it means that any Python file in your directory will also be ignored because it matches this pattern. If you did scratch *.py, then any Python file in the Scratch directory will be ignored, but other files won't be ignored. So you can also specify patterns as well. So to recap, the gitignore file tells Git which files, folders, and file patterns to ignore. You'll use it to keep sensitive information, generated files, and unnecessary clutter out of your repository. It's one of the first things that you should set up in any project.